to ask. How are you? How are you doing at the moment?
Well, badly. I describe every day as bad. Some days are really awful and some are absolutely terrible. There's no point in hiding it. It is absolutely shocking, the impact of suicide. It's estimated 135 people are affected by every suicide. And that's not just family and close friends. But in my case, having known someone for 45 years, having been married to them for 40 years, and having this come completely out of the blue with no warning at all, and being completely unprepared for it, the impact is absolutely shattering and will continue to be so for the rest of my life.
Tell us then just a little bit about Rose and the 45 years that you spent together. Just losing anyone that you have known for that amount of time would be painful enough, but to lose your companion must have been the hardest thing.
Well, you're quite right. Companion's a very good word. I mean, we've known each other since we were at Cambridge, where we read history. She was easily my best friend. We were married when we were very young at 23. And she was, obviously, I would say so, a very, very wonderful person. She was extremely intelligent. She was extremely well read. She had extremely good judgment in books, art, and horses. She was a great horsewoman. She was immensely popular. And going to Aintree last weekend, where she was chairman, we were just touched by everybody, from all the catering staff, the groundsman, right up to the chairman and chief executive, who were all extraordinarily kind about her. She did a lot of charity work. She hated fundraising, actually, but she was very, very good with people right across the board. And she was obviously political. She helped me a lot in my political career. And what was so sad was her own career was really blossoming. You know, she'd been a very successful chairman at Aintree. She made it a very different place. She made it much more welcoming to non-racing people. She had really taken on the Metropolitan Press, who had this sort of tedious narrative on Ladies' Day, trying to find unhelpful photographs of locals enjoying themselves. She said, be fair. She launched this great fashion show. She launched the Grand Women's Summit, which celebrated women's success in sport, right across all sport. And then she was working with the Jockey Club on horse welfare, because she was very knowledgeable about horses. She had a real feel for horses. She'd done things to make Aintree an absolute world leader in safety and welfare. The washdown area in Aintree is literally unique, where horses are cooled down after racing. And she brought her own direct experience from eventing, where she'd helped my daughter's amateur career, and my daughter's in the British team for 3 times. And she learned a lot. And it's just so tragic. This has all been thrown away, in our view, completely unnecessarily. And our view is that no suicide is inevitable. Absolutely no suicide is necessary. I think Rose is probably victim to sort of impulse. We know she was anxious. And I always make this distinction between anxious and depressed. I had a sort of caricature idea before I began to learn a bit more about suicide. And I would like to thank everybody who's been advising me the last few months. Rose didn't show the classic signs of depression. She wasn't on any medication. She wasn't obviously miserable. She wasn't living alone. She hadn't turned to drugs or alcohol. But she was anxious. And our message is, please talk. It goes both ways. I think those around people who might be anxious should be looking out for it and shouldn't be holding back and being embarrassed. They should approach people. And I would say that now. At work today, if you see someone, don't stump on straight onto the coffee machine. Have a word with them. You just might do some good. And if we'd been more aware of the symptoms, we might have taken an action. Things might have been very different. And of course, it cuts the other way if people who are anxious were less restrained and less buttoned up and less worried about the taboo of admitting it. If Rose had mentioned this once to us, everything would have been very, very different. So our message is very much to everybody, please be much more aware of it and please talk. I would like to see far more extensive suicide awareness training, because this is a huge issue. 6,500 people kill themselves every year. That's 15 jumbo jets. In the next 90 minutes, one person will take their life. And that impacts, I've said, on 135 people. That's nearly 1 million people dramatically impacted by suicide. And we know that the the impact of the economic downturn in 2008 didn't really come through in suicides until 2012. So I think there needs to be a really concerted effort on this. And I'd like to see everybody right across the health service, the NHS, in education, in sport, in business, in trades unions, in voluntary sectors, and very much in journalism. I would like to see them all go on a short suicide awareness course and become much more aware of it. And where you see it's been deployed, look at what Joe Rafferty's done with the Merseyside Trust in Liverpool prison. There has been a very, very significant reduction in suicide by deploying these very simple techniques. And that is what we like to put up, because we set up the Rose Paterson Trust. We're raising money for suicide prevention. But our simple thing is to have a platform on which to get this message across. Please talk. Please notice people are anxious. And please be aware. And if you are feeling anxious, you're feeling unhappy, don't bottle it up. Please, please talk. Because they are obviously by far the biggest victim of this horror, are those who tragically take their own lives.
I mean, that is almost the thing, isn't it, Mr Paterson? We have made such great strides forward in mental health provision, in terms of the ability of people to talk about it, and yet it still seems a very difficult conversation for some people to have, and not just with people that they don't know, but with the people that they are nearest and dearest to, the people that they are closest to. So how best to kind of get over that hurdle in your mind?
That's the key question. Absolutely key. If you're embarrassed to talk to your own family, talk to a friend at work, go and see your doctor, ring up the Samaritans, ring up mine, but don't be embarrassed about it. The shattering consequences are so huge of going to the next step, and so utterly terrible. First of all, for yourself, if you're feeling anxious, but for those around you. Just please take this first step, and it would just make such a difference in so many cases. We are absolutely convinced, if Rose had mentioned this to any of us, things would have been very, very different. We knew she was anxious, all sorts of things, anxious about things in my political life. She disliked some of the press stories. She was very sensitive, got more sensitive to the press as her life went on. But we had no idea, absolutely no idea, that the extent went as far as taking this very dramatic step. And of course, it sounds idiotic, simple thing to say, this is permanent. There is no going back. Yeah. And I think some of these suicides happen on an impulse. A very good expression I had from someone I know very well who very, very nearly took his own life was, it's like a snake bite. You suddenly have this surge and you're blinded and you think everything will be resolved, everyone will be better off without you. Or it's another good expression, it's like a mental heart attack. Mm-hmm. And so this can happen very, very quickly. And if someone's very determined and very competent, like Rose was, the consequences are absolutely catastrophic because they follow it through. Mm-hmm. So I'm very, very aware we need to be talking about this much more. That's why I'm being absolutely brutally frank doing these interviews, because I really hope someone out there just might be listening and think, oh, well, perhaps, I know it's difficult, but perhaps I will talk to my daughter about this. And it will be a bit embarrassing to start with. But the consequences are unbelievably appalling. The anguish we are suffering is barely tolerable. Well, and we've got to live with it for our life.
I'm so sorry for stumbling into your words there, but we have to leave it there, Mr Paterson. I really hope that people have taken your candour to heart this morning. Very, very briefly, if people want to assist the Rose Paterson Trust, how can they help?
Just Google up the Rose Paterson Trust. We've got Just Giving, we've got Text Giving. We'd be grateful for any help at all. And our intention is to help smaller charities and projects. There's wonderful work being done by the big boys like Samaritans and Mind. But I think through the lockdown, it's been very difficult for the smaller charities. We think there's a lot of good work being done on the ground. We're possibly looking in rural areas. My family are very keen on addressing suicide in women, although a quarter of suicides are women. We know there's an increase in mental distress amongst younger women, and this is possibly driven by social media. And there are a number of areas we think we can actually really do some good. And our aim is very simple. If we can help just one family, just help one single family from avoiding the horror that we're going through, we will have done a little bit of good. And that's our very simple aim.
Owen Paterson, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this morning, and we wish you all the very best of luck with the Trust in memory of your wife. Owen Paterson, thanks for being with us.
Very much. Thank you.
if you've been affected by any of the issues that we've just been discussing, the number for the Samaritans at the bottom of your screen, 116123, or you can instead email Joe, J-O, @samaritans.org.